All right, we're back. We are COMP308 in the winter 2019 semester at Centennial. We're week 6, part 2 of our broadcast about authentication. Did I even spell that right? Authentication. Yeah, I did. And yes, in the break, I kind of found a solution that's pretty ugly, but here it is. So yeah, we wanted to do this, but this is what works. And let me talk about that. So what I did was I went on the site and I went to look at some documentation, and it talked about how my callback for Flash should work by literally just doing what I did, right? So it's like you turn it on or you specify exactly what it is like this, and then it should just work. However, I'm not sure what it is that's causing the problem. I've tried a bunch of different times how to do it, but they also gave this idea of a custom callback. So this is the format that I've used, and it seems to work. So the way it works is this. You pass in a request response and next, similar to what we've done before. We use passport.authenticate local like we did. We have 3 other parameters, an error parameter, a user parameter, and an info parameter. Info parameter right now you can see is not used, but you can get additional info about user authentication. We check to see if there's an error. If there is, this would be more of some kind of server error. That's the kind of error we're talking about. Server error. Right? Then we do this. Then we check to see if the user is incorrect. So is there, this one is like, is there, a user login error, right? And if there is, then we set up a login message and and this is the flash. So we set up the login message variable and redirect them back to login, which means that they're going to go back to here and we're going to print out the login message in the messages area, right? Otherwise, you have to explicitly log in the user with rec.login, which I'm good with. I'm okay with this totally, right? Rec.login, user. If there's another error again, we do another error callback again, some kind of other kinds of, again, there's some kind of other additional server error. It's some kind of server error that may occur at this point when you're actually performing the login, right? And then we return res redirect to where we want, which is our contact list, right? And what we do is we explicitly trigger this whole process, which is part of the Passport Authenticate local, explicitly by doing an automated callback request. Poof, not happy with it at all, and way longer than this, right? But it works. And I'll show you how it works. I'm just going to kill this, and I'll put this up on GitHub so we can use this as our successful method for doing everything. But let me show you what it does. So if I go back to our login request, you can see that I got an error. If I try and log in, so I use admin and the admin password. If I click login, it'll take me to my contact list, which is what it should do. If I press log out, which we're going to set this up now, log out, bam, we're out, right? And if I go back and log in again, and if I have some kind of error, I don't have this user. If I click login, bam, I get this authentication error, which is good. That's how it should work, right? If I register and I try and register a user that already exists, like we showed you before, like I do something like the admin user, and I put in some stuff in here. It doesn't really matter what it is. But I'm trying to register the admin user. Click register. It's going to say register. It's going to say, bam, the user already exists. Maybe not a good thing. But those kind of things work. So we're good now. I'm going to put this up on GitHub for you guys to have it. I think this is at least for me, I don't mind if it's a little longer if I'm going to get a benefit from it. And I have a benefit. So I'm good. So I'll say fixed login flash error. That's what it was. It's kind of a bug fix more than anything else. I'm not really one for bug fixing, while we're going, but it really bothered me this morning and today. And sometimes you just got to bite the bullet. All right, so that's it. So this part works. We have all the functionality we want on the back end, but we still have problems on the front end. And the problem is I don't have a login or logout button. I need those kind of things. And we're going to put that inside the navigation area. Now, we need to be strategic here. And what I mean by that is if I put it on the navigation area, we have to remember how this works. I want to, first of all, make sure that all of my links have this embedded, right? Because otherwise my navigation will fail. So I've done it here. So all my index links have this, but I also have to put this, all this stuff, right? These things here on my contact, in my contact controller. My contact controller has this, but it doesn't have this part. So I have to put that kind of and place that in there. So I'm going to do that for all those. Not here. Here for sure. And anywhere else that I have some kind of redirect that gives me that. So now I have that. I think I've covered myself. One. I don't think there's any place else. If there is, by the way, it will come up in a very bad way. Those are like, bam, it's not working. You can't do this, and we're going to crash your whole computer. Maybe the world. We'll do an EMP, whatever. But it will definitely complain large, right? So that's something that we don't want to see. Cool. So we've taken care of that requirement because we know we're going to need that little display thing. Now we're going to go into our partials inside of our header. And this is where we're going to do some of the work. So I want to display this stuff. I know that I'm getting the display name right now. It's coming, right? And what I want to do is do two things. One, at the bottom of my title, right? And this is where, you know, I want to kind of get this stuff happening. It's inside my view. And inside of my header, right at the bottom, I did this earlier today. I plotted this earlier. I just never had a chance to do it with you guys, right? So I want to create another nav item, but that's conditional, a conditional nav item. And the way it would go is, okay, I want to say that if my type of display name, right, is equal to a string, I want to check to see if my type is of string. So type of is a JavaScript thing. You can check to see if the type of whatever you're checking is a string. If it's not a string, if it's something else, I don't want to do this. And my display name exists, right? So it exists. Then let's wrap this properly. Then what I want to do is, so my display name exists. I know that my display name exists. If it doesn't exist, right, then I know that I have a problem. I won't be able to display stuff. I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say that I want to put a list item. So a list item, and I better do this in non-EJS format just to make sure it's cool. So I want to put a list item in play with a class of navbar text, right? And yes. And inside of that list item, I want to put some kind of tag, right? So here's my navbar text. I want to put an I tag in there. My I tag is going to have a class of some kind of user. So I want to kind of use FA user. So let's take a look if I can find something like that in my documentation for Font Awesome. So I want to find a user icon. And users are good, but I probably want to find this user icon. This user icon is FAS FA user. So FAS FA-user. That's the one I want to use. So it's a user icon that'll come up for my user. And I want to kind of say something like at the end of my I tag, welcome, and then I want to inject the display name. So I'll put this on two levels in a second, 2 lines. I want to inject display name. So this would be this. Okay, so hey, look, hey, navbar text. Navbar text means I can't click on it. That's what it means in latest version of Bootstrap. I want to inject a icon. Here's my icon, which is a user icon. And I want to say welcome and blah, blah. Now, this only applies when I'm logged in because otherwise there'd be no display name. Make sense? Let's check this out. And let's see if I can actually get a display name when I'm logged in first. One thing at a time. So I'm going to go back to this thing, my home, and refresh. And I don't have a display name now, but let's log in. So log in. And I'm going to log in as me, so my admin user. And if I log in, it's going to say, welcome admin. So I did text and I'm there, right? So the way it did that, and this is too small because I probably should have FAS FA-large in there because otherwise it'd be too small. Right? Welcome admin. The way this works is it says, hey, is there a display name? If there is a display name, then we know someone's logged in. If there's not a display name, then no one's logged in. So don't even make this list item at all. That's what it does. Conditional list item, right? And the way this works is inside of our controllers, which we've kind of named, in my index.js, we do that, right? So anytime I go somewhere, no matter what I'm doing, I'm displaying my request, my display name. I'm passing in my display name, whether I'm in the contact page or the services page or the products page, I'm always passing in a display name. Either it's nothing or it's someone that's come in. I have to do that because I'm switching pages. So I must check every single page for that. That's number one. However, if I log out, nothing. Right? No matter where I go, I'm never going to see that unless I'm logged in. So that's the first thing. So what I also want to do there is not just welcome the user, but also produce another list item in here that shows me a log out link. So I'm logged in, I need to log out. So it's going to be a list item, right? Again, actually, let me undo that. List item with a class of nav item. Inside the list item, I'm going to have an anchor tag with a class of nav link, right? So it looks like this. My href tag is going to be /logout, right? And it's going to say logout. That's what the actual tag will say. And that will have to be inside my anchor tag. So it'll be like logout, log, if I can spell. And then between my anchor tag and the nav link, right? What I want to put in is an I tag. So we'll do that now. Next, I'll put an I tag, and inside my I tag, I'll have a class of, let's say, FAS FA large, and then FA-sign out alt. And the reason why it's alt is because the other ones have been all made pro. They're all pro. I don't have access to pro. Make sense? So again, a nav item, an anchor tag with a class of nav link, an I tag with a class of FAS, FA large, FA sign out alt, logout. And I'll show that should show my logout page, my logout link. So going over here, refresh, I shouldn't see anything. But when I log in, I go here, I access my page. And I'm in. Now it shows welcome and then log out. Right? This is good. So if I click log out, bam, I'm done. Now I need a log in button. So the login is similar to this. This is if there's a display name, but what about if there's not a display name? So I can say, well, what about else? If there's not a display name, right? And I have a situation where I can also set up another list item. I can say that it's very similar to the log in. I'll take this whole log out one and make it the log in one. So take this one, put it there. It's a nav item, and instead of logging out, we'll log in. And instead of FAS, FA large, FA sign out, I'm sure it's FA sign in. And instead of log out, it's log in. And if that's true, we should always see this one. We should always see the login one. So going back, refresh, and we're good. Here's my login button. When I click login, it takes me to the login page. If I have a problem, it takes me to the error. If I want to register, let's register that guy, Thomas. He's driving me crazy, right? And I'll say, you know, Thomas at example.com. My display name is Thomas Jones, right? Register. Excellent. Thomas Jones, welcome. Log out, right? Log in. Thomas, log in. Log out. Okay, we're good, right? So that basically takes up care of this part. One thing to note is that we haven't really, there's some other things we can probably do to make this even nicer. But, you know, again, it's all a matter of time. I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time trying to figure this part out, because it's nice, but wouldn't it be nice if the links were colored different colors, like a blue color instead of a thing? Yeah, I know. Just saying. Green color, you know, make that bar look a little nicer. There's ways of doing it, but I'm not going to invest the time doing that right now. At least there's functionality, right? Okay, we're almost good. We're almost completely done. But, you know, we still have another problem. I want to protect my page. So when I go to my contact page, I can't even see the contact list unless I'm logged in. Okay? Right now, whether I'm logged in or not, I can see the contact list. But I want to prevent people from seeing the contact list. My contact list is mine, okay? It's protected. And you can't see it. And I want to protect my database too. So, by the way, all this functionality that we have for login, log out, blah, blah, whatever, can all be preserved with Angular, which is pretty cool. So once we set this up on the back end, we can redo this on the front end for Angular setup, which is be very similar, you'll see. So what I want to do here is it's more back-end stuff. So it's not about front end. My front end is complete. In fact, let me just put that up on GitHub. So I'll say that I added login/logout links to navbar. That's what I did. Right? So push. One day. And then what I want to do is inside of my controllers, my index is good, right? My index is just my front end pages. All these pages on my index controller should be accessible. I should be able to log in and log out without having to log in and log out, right? So these are all good. I should be able to register without having to log in, no problem. But if I want to do anything in my contacts page, this is where we get a little hairier. And so what I want to do in my contacts page is I need to make some modifications right at the beginning. So right now I have my contact model and I have my express and router. And you know what? Maybe what we should do is put this inside instead of the controllers. The controllers aren't going to be the problem. It's the roots. Sorry, I meant to do it here in the roots. So again, I can access everything, but at the top of my roots, I have my router and my contact controller, and that's okay. That's kind of what I want to do. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right, because I don't want to mislead you guys, because it's you know, it's not that tricky, but I want to make sure that we don't miss anything, because it's one of those. So yeah, I have this and I have my contact controller, but what I need is another reference to passport. So I'm going to say that passports is equal to require passports. And when I do the require passport thing, what it's going to do is it gives me access to any kind of passport stuff that I want to use later on. And what I want to do is actually want to do one of these. I want to set up a new module function. So this is new. A function that's only accessible by the module, but not accessible outside of this module. So like a private function, if you will. Okay. And I'm going to use the function keyword for this, and I'm going to call this thing require auth. Right? And require auth is going to take a request, response, and next object. This is new. And I want to check to see if the user is logged in, right? If the user's logged in, fantastic. If the user's not logged in, then they can't use it. I'm going to say that only logged in users for now can do it. So I'm going to say if request is authenticated. I'm checking to see if they're authenticated. It's actually a built-in function with passport. Then I want to return res.redirect. I want to res.redirect him back to where he should go, which is he's probably here to see the contact list. So take him to that contact list anyway. Okay. But if he's not, don't do anything. Go to the next request. So did I do this right? Let's take that back. If my request is not authenticated, that's what this says. Take him back to the login page. That's where he should go. Take him to the login page, right? If he is authenticated, continue. That's what this means, okay? So I'll be okay. Getting late. So how do I use this thing? So I want to stick this part right here anytime I want to do anything to do with this controller, right? So any root should have this require auth part of it. And I can stick it on in front of the contact controller. This is kind of cool. So I take this thing here, and I can go here, and I can just put a comma, and it'll require auth when I go to the contact list page. And I would require auth when I want to add a contact, and I'll require auth when I, process the page, and require auth, and require auth, and require auth. This kind of protects the page. So every root is protected. Now, I could also have done it differently. I could have also done this on the app.js file, right? Where I can check to see, I can make an authentication piece, add passport in there, check to see the same thing. And basically, if the user is not authenticated, do the same thing. Much more difficult there because I don't have a request. So it's kind of weird. But I could check to see if the user is authenticated. And if he is, then I can block this whole, so almost like a section block as opposed to link by link blocking, which is what I'm doing here. All right, so let's see if this works. So if it works, then I'm not logged in. If I refresh, I should take me back to login, right? So if I go back to my contact page and just click contact, it takes me back to login. However, if I log in and I go to this guy, log in, it takes me to this page. So it's all good, right? Same thing with add a contact. I can go to add a contact. Let's copy this add a contact thing, right? And then log out. Oh, what the heck? This is wrong. So why is that? Because add new contact, right, does not have display name. Let's check that. So add a contact, this one here. Yeah, so these are things you have to look at, right? So that should be under the controller for contacts and display name, add page. Yep. See? Missed it. Sorry. And this is kind of the work we have to do sometimes, guys. I'm sorry, but it's checking, it's testing, right? So we have to go through the page, make sure all those little things are found. And if not, then you're going to get a problem. So it's log you in. So I'm going to go back to log in, log into this guy, go back to here, add a contact, copy this stuff. It should say log out, log out. And if I kind of push that in there by myself and press add, it'll still take me, it won't let me add anything. That's how it should work. So it protects all those stages of all those places, right? So if you lose connectivity, if it logs you out, then you're back to this. Make sense? So that's how you protect a page. But what if I want to protect it so that only the admin user has access, right? So any user can log in and have access to some stuff, but only the admin user. So now user level access, almost like authorization instead of authentication, right? So yeah, Thomas can log in and he can have access, but now I want to protect it from, that. Well, then I have to modify my little authentication is authenticated piece. So sure, if he's not authenticated, take him out, right? If he is authenticated, go next, right? But wait. We don't want to check to see if he's authenticated. It's not just any user. Request is authenticated, right? We don't care about this. If he's not authenticated, definitely make him log in. Okay, that's definitely one. But what if he is authenticated? So now if I get to here, he's authenticated, right? But I want to check to see if the user itself, the request.user is equal to a certain guy. So again, I can say something like, well, if, as an example, request.user, right, is equal to admin, right? Then go next. Actually, what it should be is if he's not authenticated and request.user, let's not do this to be better. And request.user is not equal to admin, right? Admin user. So if those two things are both not happening, so let's make this, I like putting this in brackets to make it even clearer, so there's no issues. Then redirect him back to login. Otherwise, if he is the admin and he's authenticated, bring him to next, right? Let's see if that works. So now, unless he's admin, Thomas Jones can't access my list. Only the admin user can access my list. Let's try this out. Again, I'm going to go back to contact, and I'm going to click contact list, and he's logged in. I click login, and oh man, what happened, right? So this is a problem. It says Thomas Jones logged in, and I can see my list, right? Well, because it says and request is not equal to admin. How about if request is equal to admin? I'll be okay. So refresh. Okay, so log. Oh, wait. That is, I shouldn't be able to get there. Hold on a second. What's happening? If request and request user is equal to admin. So both those have to be correct. If not request is authenticated and request.user is equal to admin, then, oh no. No, that was right. No, that was right. That was right. Hold on. Request.user is not equal to admin. If both those two things are true, how about instead of and, it's or. Or request.user is not equal to admin, then redirect. I'll be okay. It happens, you're tired, bad things happen, right? Log in. If I go to contact, if I click contact list, it should tell me to log in. If I log in Thomas, that's good. But if I go back to my contact and click on contact list, it redirects me, right? In fact, if you think about it, should I even see my contact list if I'm not the admin user? Why would I open that up? The only person that should see my contact list is my admin user, right? Not even the link should be available to them, right? So if that's true, then what I want to do is, and by the way, the reason why I got redirected back is because I'm already logged in. Remember I said, if I'm logged in, don't even try and log them in, just put them back to the root, Okay. So how to do that? So that's the front end thing. So this is a back end thing where I can protect for certain user. One user, only the admin user can access, right? Here and that'll affect anything that I have require auth on. And by the way, if I want to, I can make multiple functions like this. One for require admin, another one for require auth. It means all users must be logged in to see this area, but only the admin can see this area, right? That kind of thing. So I can have multiple of these. And I can have multiple things in this because I can just have next, right? So I can have each one of these things can be in there if it makes sense, right? So let's go back and let's try that out. Let's try it out so we can fix this part. So I want to go back to the front end, which is in my header. Actually, it's in my content this time, right? So it's inside of my views. And inside my views, I have my index.ejs, which is this. Notice I have my contact, right? So it only comes up if it's contact, if contact is true, right? But again, I can check to see if my display name, because what am I passing in? I'm passing in my display name. So if my display name is not exactly admin, it's not going to show it. So it needs to be equal to contact, right? That might be one way of doing it. Right, so it's only on the contact page, and right, it must be my display name is equal to admin. Those two things must be true, and if that's true, only then will I even see my button. Okay, so again, some really cool conditional stuff you can do. Again, if I refresh, you can see that there's no button anymore, even if I'm in the contact page, right? And if I log in as Thomas, I'm logged in. But if I go back into my contact page, I got nothing, and there's nothing there, right? But if I log out and I log back in as admin, then you can see that if I go to my contact page, I have my contact list again, and I can see it. Oh. And I can see it. No one can see it now. Well, that's weird. How's that possible? I am admin. Oh boy, here we go again. These are okay. So let's go through the logic again. If my request is authenticated or request.user is not equal to admin, then redirect. Otherwise, CM, right? So let's take a look at what I see from a request.user perspective. Let's print that out. Console log. It's just something of a logic, right? This user. Because if you don't see what my request user is, then that would be very bad, right? So let's take a look. So refresh. And if I go to my console log now, you can see that I'm here. And if I refresh the page, it doesn't show a request user. But if I go back to log in, and I log in, I can't see the contact page because there's no contact link, right? So again, there's no, one thing that is cool is that it says username is Thomas. This is my request user. Email is this. Display name is this. And here's my ID. And here's when I was created. This is when it's got updated. This is the whole user information, okay? And this gets set up when I'm trying to go to my contact page, right? If I go like, for example, contact lists, I know that I can do this manually, right? It should redirect me. And it's exactly what happened again. So there, it's printing me out again. So it's not user, actually, it's username. So that's what I did. Remember request.user, and it's not the request.user, it's request.user.username. So that's the thing. It's like minor things like that that we have to be careful about because we're making some, assumptions, right? So that's the thing. So if I go, I want to see what this brings me, right? Again, if I refresh, and if I go back to this, you can see that there's nothing because I haven't gone to some place that's secure. But if I click on contact, And if I go here, right, we should see that when I'm logged in, I only want the username, not the user, right? So I log in, I click login, I go to contacts, and I go back to the page. We should see the username. And let's see if that's true, because I'm not seeing it at all now. Oh, there it is. And that's what I want. So it's that username that I want to be more specific, not the user. The user gives me too much data. User gives me user dot whatever, right? So I want the username to be here. Troubleshooting. All right, let's try one more time. So log in. I log in as Thomas. I go back to my contact page, nada. I log out. I log in as admin. I log in. Ta-da! I can add a contact, maybe, yeah. Let's add a contact. Peter Parker. We have to check all these things, eh? Age 21. We're good. Peter Parker. I want to delete a contact. Kill that guy. Yes, I'm sure he's gone. And I want to edit a contact. Tony Stark is not 45. He's 46. All right. Submit. We're good. So all that stuff works because we've checked all the stuff that we have to do. We've gone through that whole process. If I log out, I don't even see my contact list. Even if I log in as a regular dude, I won't see my contact list at all in there, just when I'm the admin user. Yeah, yeah. Any questions? So, yeah, so many things, right? And so remember what we talked about, like, why can't we do authentication again in one day? And CRUD. And if I had more time, it's 502. The other thing we could do is do user management, right? And user management will be the next step. So I need, for user management, what do I need? I need a edit page for users only. And I need a whole set of routes that allow me to do an update and a delete. I need those two things. So it's not a really big update. So an update and a delete. I also need a password reset page, because I don't have that either. So what if a user forgets his password? There should be that password link. I should be able to change my login page to say login, password, forgot password, or register. One of those kind of things. Those are all things to do. And there is documentation on how to do all that stuff up online. I'm not going to do it with you. Just too much. You've already got basic authentication. I think it's good enough if you wanted to, as a start. If I had more time, I would do that. One thing I wanted to cover with you before we go, because I'm not going to have time to do all that. That's not because I don't want to do it. It's not going to be half an hour, okay? If half an hour to do all that. It sounds easy, but actually it's not. I'll be running you right to the end, and then we won't finish, right? So not cool. But one thing I wanted to do was take a look at what we've got here in our collections. And I didn't do this except for the first group. So we know that if I look at the collection and see what it looks like for those two users, I got two users, right? I've got Thomas and I got admin. So if I go to db.users.find.pretty, I've got this. Yeah. So remember I was telling you guys about this, and it was like, well, what do you mean, Tom? What do you mean about this kind of thing, right? So there's a couple things here, right? One is I've got my username, I got my email, I got my display name, and I got my created and updated. These are really good things to understand when they're updated or created, right? But then I got two more things that I didn't ask for: salt and hash. And salt and hash is what is done by it's taken care of by Passport Local Mongoose. Why I'm using Passport Local Mongoose and not Passport Local? Passport Local actually gets you to do all this stuff on your own. Like tells you the hash. No, doesn't. You don't type it in. I'm saying it tells you there's extra coding involved in specifying what the hash is. This is just like pre-done. Someone's gone ahead and said, look, these are the most common options. Let's make something that works with Mongoose because of the most common options that we use with Mongoose. Okay, so that's what this thing is. Questions around authentication? I think we've covered everything I want to cover. Yeah.
How do you have a database called users?
I didn't. The system added it for me, right? My application added it. And I did that when I created my my model. So if you go to my users model, right? Here's my user model. On the bottom here, I said that the collection is going to be users. The database is not users. The collection is users, right? So that's when it was created. Make sense? So again, there's some things I'm missing, right? If I wanted to make a user management, what do I need? Let's go over this. Hint, hint for next week, right? What do I need to make my user, to manage users, right, for my database? Think about it. What do I need? I need routes. So if I look at my, like my server, I have a model. I have a user model. Do I need a user model? No, it's there. So there's no user model necessary. I have that. However, I need a couple of things. In my routes, right, I have an index and a contact. There is no user route, which means, so this is where it comes back. I got to go to my config. In my app.js, on the top, I have to configure some kind of router, right, for users, which I don't have, okay? And then on the bottom, I have to configure what my route is going to be, /users, most likely. Okay, so those two things have to be in place in my app.js. Next, I have to go into my routes and create another file called users. And then in my controller, I have to have a file called users, right? My users routes are going to specify the following: the / for the user list. It's going to display my user list, right? So it's going to look exactly similar from how my contact list looks like. So if you look at my contact list, right, it looks exactly like this. So it's going to say / my user controller dot display users. That's what it's going to be. And under my user controller here, you're going to say module.exports user, display user list, right? Request, response, and next. Contact model.find. As an example, instead of contact model, it's going to be user model.find, or users probably .find. The user list, same exact stuff. And then I'm going to render, guess what? I need a view that says inside of a users folder that says index, my users index, which is going to show all of my user list. That's what's going to happen. And then my user list is going to have a user list that I'm going to pass into it. My display name is still going to be there. That's all good. So in my views, inside of another folder called users, I'm going to have to put in an index for my users, just like contact, like this. And then I'm going to have an edit and an add for my users. So if I want to add a user in my list, not by registering, but by adding them, I can create that. And it'll automatically create a user. What it's going to do, I'm going to actually use not just the regular add, but add a registration type add, another type of registration, which adds a user but doesn't log him in with a default password that he has to change when he logs in for the first time, right? Yeah, do you see how this is growing, right? In terms of details. So that's one thing I have to do. Now I'm not going to make you do all this ever, like in a test or something like that. Like it's too much. But if I ever do a test with this, hint, hint, right? Then there would probably be something like this with not as much detail. Like I'll say, you do this, and then do that, or I might have some of it's done. One of this, yeah. So default password would be like when you add a new user, a default password gets added in. You can actually add it in yourself. Default password, like instead of in the add, if I was going to make a user in the add thing, it would say default password instead of password. Default password is this, and maybe a checkbox that says, do you want the user to have a message to change the password, when he logs in the first time? And then if I have to enable that inside the users list, I would have to see first time, like maybe another in the user model, I'll have to change to say that this is his first time logging in. It would be a Boolean. First time login, yes. If it's true, then display the you must change your password page, right? And then that Boolean would be turned off, right? Or you could turn that Boolean on and off, change password Boolean on and off, right? If the user requests to change his password. If he changes his password and it comes up and he's trying to log in, the password change page will come up, which is another page that we'll have to put in under user management, right? And what about if the user wants to update his own profile? Should he be allowed to do that, or should he be allowed to do that? The answer should be probably yes. What if they want to add a picture, or if they want to change up their email address or whatever? Should they be allowed to remove the email address or remove their username or something like that? How much should they have to do, right? So there's certain permissions you can add in there, and then there's like tons of user management, guys, is almost like a module of itself. You can make it really complex. Simply, if I was ever going to test you on it or something like that, I would just say, edit a user, display a user. I'll display a user list, and that's it. It wouldn't be even accurate, but it'd be close. Okay, but think about all things. So you need all those roots. You need the roots for so you need a file for roots that would say user file. And then you need a file for your controllers. And in your controllers for users, you have all your user controllers, how they're set up, right? And of course, they're all linked together. You literally have to just put all the information to kind of list together here. And then you'd have your user management. And then, of course, you'd have to say, well, only the admin user should be able to do user management, right? But maybe any user can look at the contact list. So you'd have to set that up. So going back to that, just like we did with our contact controller. So if I go back to my contact controller, you can see the controller is good, but in the roots, we catch it at the root. So in my contact root, I have this require auth thing, right? So I would have require auth would be different. I can have a different function for everything. So I can have the exact same function name, require auth, but require auth inside of my contact list would allow any user to look at my contact list, any registered user. But require auth inside of my user route would only allow admins to look at it, right? So I would have this version. This version would be in for just admins for my user management. Okay, so for now, we don't care about this. So I'm going to take this off of this when I save this up on GitHub. It should kind of look like this. This is the default way of doing it, and then you'd have to add any other way by blocking that user. Okay, so makes sense? So if I go to this, you can see this is the contact stuff. I've added in a way of user. It's kind of like user authorization. Only a logged in user can see that. So I'll put that in there. So enabled user authorization, right? Because you can't do authorization without authentication, can't live, right? But authentication with no authorization has no functionality, right? So there's no reason for it. So, and now you have everything that you need, okay? I know it's a lot, but I want you to think about this as, look, whenever you build a web site, we should think about this kind of stuff, right? All right, stuff left for tonight. So going back to admin, remember tonight your stuff is due by tonight at midnight. You should have everything you need. Keep it simple. So I'm not asking for, glorious designs for your portfolio page. Meet the requirements. Go through each of the requirements and go check, check, check. I did this, I did this, I did this. You're going to get maximum marks. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not looking for beautiful pages. As long as you use Bootstrap, I'm good. But there's no Bootstrap template. So don't use a template that makes it look like it's some kind of weird, thing that looks very, very nice. Why? Because a lot of those templates, I normally allowed them in the past, but the templates also come with code, right? And it takes care of a lot of the functionality for you without doing any routing, right? So that's not what I wanted. I wanted to avoid all that, and that's why I said no this time around. Although in the past I've said yes, right? On the downside, it means more work for you. On the good side, it means it's going to push you a little bit to remember how to do web design a little bit, and it'll be something that makes it your own. Remember that after this is done in the next section, I may allow you to go back and fiddle with it, right, and make it nicer. Remember, this is your portfolio that maybe you want to show somebody else what you can do, right, from a web design perspective, but also to show your work. I mean, maybe your web design or web development is not going to be your thing. You're going to be a game developer, or you're going to be a fill in the blank, right? Just be nice about it. Don't fill in bad blanks, right? Otherwise, is that it? Anything else? Anybody else have any questions?
I didn't catch up where like you removed like username equal to.
You didn't catch it? Yeah, I took it out because you don't need admin. So how it works is, if I go back to my site now and I'm not logged in, contact doesn't work. I log in to me, I should be able to see my contact list, right? Because that's any contact, huh?
Yeah, but you are not admin.
No, I'm anyone. Yeah, I'm anyone now. Anyone can look at my contact list, but maybe only admin should be able to see a new link. That's another thing you can do. You can actually create new links on the top here. If you're the admin user, you should be able to do user management. So like maybe the user list should be a link that comes up here, or somewhere else, maybe another page altogether, another section, right? So these are cool. One thing I haven't had a chance to do is test going to Heroku. I could open this up, like this could be opening a can of worms right here, but I'm going to do it before we leave. By the way, you don't have to stay. I've done everything I need to do. I'm going to put it on Heroku and record it because I know people have asked for how to do that. One more time.
So like now everyone can access the contact list.
Everyone can access the contact list. Everyone, right? Only the people who are logged in. How about that?
Okay.
Log out, yes.
So the collection part that you created for user, is it related to database, the MongoDB connected, or no? The one which you already created on the
MLab? No. No, there's no database for that, but you don't need it, right? So let me explain that. Are you good, Ryan? Okay. So so let's try this out. So there's two parts. One is on MLab. Remember that down on in my configuration. So if I look at my server and if I go to config and if I go to db.js, I have this, right? So I'd want to turn this on and this one off. That's the first thing. So I have a configuration already, right? And you can see that it says 4B. It doesn't really matter what it says. As long as this is a functional database, I should have access to this. Now, here's a challenge. If I try and make this work here, like you said earlier, not going to connect because we're blocked in the school, all right? But the other problem is that we don't know if this is going to work on Heroku either. You're confident it's going to work?
Try that.
Let's see, right? There's two ways to do Heroku. One way is to create a new Heroku app. So if I go to Heroku.com and if I go to the new lesson, so I'm going to go create new app. And let's make this lab COMP308-W2019-lesson 6. That's what it is, right? And I make a new app. And one thing it's going to ask you for GitHub. I'm going to choose GitHub as my connection, right? And this is important. It's asking me for my repo. I'm going to look at Centennial. And what I want to do is I want to say comp. .08. There it is, connect. And now that I've connected it, it says wait for CI deploy. I'm going to enable automatic deploys, and I'm going to deploy my master branch. So this is what I want. I want it to be this simple, all right? If it's not this simple, and if it causes us to have issue or fails, then there's too much work. It's gonna be like, that's how fast it's gotta be for you, all right? So it looks like NPM has been installed. Node modules, we're installing some packages, and found 0 vulnerabilities, discovering process types, and default type for build pack, it's going to choose web, and it says it's good, but sometimes, my friends, it somehow doesn't work. And we're going to talk about this because of my pathing, right? Now this works at this point, right? Well, what about? What about products? What about services? Let's check all of them, right? What about contact? Well, nothing here. What about logging in? Uh-oh, I don't have any kind of users thing. You just said that, right? I'm going to go to users, and now I have to register. Let's register a new user called admin, right? With the password 123456, right? My email would be admin@example.com. My display name would just be simply admin. Register. Okay. Cycling. Why isn't it working? There are a couple of reasons, right? One is, do I have a user's collection? That's number one. And the answer is on MLab, I do not. I don't create a user's collection. MLab doesn't create it for you, right? So you have to go to MLab, see if we can fix this. I don't know if I can, but let's try it out. And remember that I have, what? Okay. I'm going to go to accounts. That's good. I don't know what that meant. Let's go to, wow, that was weird. Let's go to welcome. Here's my welcome. That's good. Let's manage. And you can see that I have a bunch of stuff. And there's one of them that I want is this one, 4B, in my sandbox. I have my collections is first. That's the only collection I have. I want to make a new collection called users and create. Okay, there's my users. My users have 0 in there. Now let's go back to Heroku, which is this one, and it says application error. Let's go back. And this time I want to see if I can register a user again. So admin, password, 123456, email, admin@example.com, admin, register. And this is where we get into problems. So like now we know right away that it's not the admin user that I'm trying to put into play, right? You see that?
I mean, last time you add directly from the console command.
I'm just telling you, being honest, right? It's not working, right? And the reason for this doesn't not because of anything else, but because there's two things. First, we got to make sure that this isn't changed, right? So first thing I want to do is, did I make the right URI choice? And if I look at control tab, right, obviously I got a Mongo network error happening, right here. Mongo network error, it's timed out, I can't connect to it, but there could be a lot of reasons for this, right? So it gives me application error. If I look at Heroku Labs, I can find out what the problem is, but I'm pretty sure it's just not connecting to MLab. Okay, so this is the first thing you have to check. So number one, let's refresh this. And we can see that there's nothing here, but I can add in one, right? We know I can add in one because I already have an example of a user. The admin user actually exists, and I have them locally, remember? So let's go, and what if I took the admin user in its glory, which is this guy right here, and I don't want this --v. Let's take that away too, right? But let's suppose, one more time, let's make sure, copy. And let's go to my collection of users, and I want to add a new document. So I add a document. Can I even read the document is the question. So paste, I can't add this. Remember, the ID doesn't make any sense. User admin and blah, 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 and this might be okay. But everything else, and even this hash might be okay. Let's just create and go back. So it says there's a problem. Please check your syntax, make sure it's okay. So it could be this V0 thing, could be that. Let's just take this away. But I have a feeling it's this crazy thing. Yeah. And again, we're just trying to prove out, I'm pretty sure that Not sure if I can do that. Because ISO dates is not JSON, right? It's something else. So again, if I create and go back, it's going to give me an error. So I can't copy paste. Just can't. If I take out the updated and created, maybe. Leave the salt in there. But if I take out the updated and created, and if I press create and go back, might be okay. But now I have another problem. I'm missing data, right? So what happens now if I go back to my user, like I'm just trying to test to see if it's a problem, right? Go back to my user here, and instead of register, I want to log in. All the pages work, but my MLab connection is no good. So let's add admin, and that's my password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Now here's where the problem lies again. Watch how it cycles. So there's two possibilities. One, MLab connection is incorrect, right? That's the main possibility. Two, I'm being blocked by Heroku somehow, which is possible. And the way I know this is I've done some stuff with Heroku before, right? So one thing to note is that Heroku allows you to do other resources, have other resources here. So for example, I can add an add-on, right? So I can find things like MLab. Here's MLab from MongoDB, right? There's a sandbox that's free for this lesson, okay? So I say that, okay, cool, provision it. So this is another way of doing it, okay? So you can do right through Heroku. Now the challenge with this one is it says attached as MongoDB. It's free as an add-on. If I open this up, it opens up MLab in a different account. And what it does is it's got to give me my username and password, right? So here you can see that Mongo and MLab and Heroku, and this is the actual DB user and DB password. I need to make a user and password like right here. So I've called users. I can add in, here's my username, right? And you can see that the username is this, right? My owner. The role is the owner, right? But I want to make add a database password. So again, I'll add, now this is for the database itself, not for any other account, right? So the user is this, and the account is this, but my database password is someone else. So let's say I make a user Thomas, and the password is, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And create. Here he is. Here's my Thomas user, right? A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if I go back to my database, which is this, I need to put my MongoDB user at whatever. And that's something that I have to update. And now, my friends, I know what the problem is. You know what the problem is? I figured it out. Let's go back and disconnect that resource. So free, delete. Because I'm being silly. No. So what did we finish? What did we forget to do? First of all, let's go back to MLab. Let's move back to MLab and kill that user. Woo, right? I want to go back to MLab. So this is not the right one. It's this one. And here's my admin user. Let's kill him. Cool. And now remember what we did. We went to here, right? And we changed db.js here. Did we save it? Did we put it up on GitHub? No. So when I was doing it, I was going, wait a minute, I'm missing something. This should work. Wait a minute, I'm missing something. This should work. And of course, I was missing something and it should work, right? So here, I'm going to go to here, and this is the configuration. So I'm going to say modified config to work with MLab. Okay, so this and this and this. If you don't do this properly, you're gonna forget. And I forgot. Now, we know that this works, but we also know that we need sometimes push my activity. Here's my activity. You can see now what's happening is build is in progress. This tells you live that what's happened is it's looking at the GitHub repo, and until the build, the progress is done, I can actually look at the build progress by clicking on this. Oop, it was too fast. Let's go back and refresh. And if I now, let's register. Let's register the admin user. Deleted it. Good work. And no, do not do this. Notice I have a lot more guys up here online because we checked a bunch of stuff out, and some people actually logged in. Looks like some other people added their own, right? It wasn't me, someone else. For testing, they probably used my own thing. They probably tested it on theirs, right? That's neat. I like that, but let's just kill some of these ones. That's so funny, right? But yeah, but this is the point. This is like, you know, that's the idea, right? That you guys are testing. And I want you to test on my stuff, right? Why not? Okay. So this is cool. My contact is available to me now. I can do this kind of stuff, right? If I log out and I go to my contacts, I can't see anything. If I log in and go to my user, and I never logged in yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I log in. I should be able to get in. If I log out, as an example, and I log in again, and I put in a username with the wrong password, right? And I should get that error on the top, which works nice. If I cancel, or I try to register the same user, all that stuff should be working fine. And then I should get that error that's on top of that. If I cancel, I go back. So now we have everything functional. Okay. I was pretty lucky that I figured that out because I was going to waste a lot of time. But by the way, you could do what I did. You could go through Heroku and create a user and make a plugin. It all connects right through Heroku. Even if you don't have an MLab account, it'll work. Okay. What was that?
You don't want our test to be put on.
I might give you a bonus. It's just time. It's just time, Ryan. You may not have time to do it all, right? I might say deploy to Heroku as a bonus. I might say, you know, do whatever else that I talked about as a bonus, right? And then, you know, so if you have time within the 2 hours, great. If you don't have time, it's okay. The what? No authentication. It's too much. Authentication is too much. But I might say, you know, look, authentication is already working. This is valid. Authentication is already working. Now make this. That's something else. I'm not making you do authentication, technically. If I say, hey, look, here's this thing I just gave you. This thing we're just working on now, right? Add something to it. Nothing to do with authentication, right? Or if there's authentication, I've given you clear instructions on what to do. I've given you the answers, right? Like something that doesn't require you to think, right? Then that's okay, right? Shouldn't be anything new is what I'm saying, okay? Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Please study or finish your stuff. Good luck.